everybody. So glad to be with you again. Today we're going to be making a piece inspired by Japanese cherry blossom paintings. It's the season for cherry blossoms in Japan, and the materials that we're going to need today, I'm just going to use this color pencil to show you guys where Japan is on the map, but a big fluffy brush like this, or if you don't have a calligraphy brush like this, bamboo calligraphy brush, gosh, it still doesn't sound right, but that's right. If you have a round tipped brush like this one, that's a pretty good size, has pretty soft bristles, because the key here is that we want to be able to lift and have lots of paint on this brush. I'm gonna actually use a brush like this, since I'm assuming that most people probably don't have a bamboo calligraphy brush like this one. If you do, go ahead and use it, but if you don't, that's okay. You'll be just fine with this one as well. The other things we're gonna need are a straw. I only have metal straws at my house, but if you have regular plastic straws, that will work just perfectly as well, just as long as you have some kind of a straw. We're going to be using Q-tips. Again, if you watched my video from last week, we used Q-tips for our dot painting from Australia. We'll need something to put paint on, some kind of a palette. I've already got mine preloaded with red and with white for the cherry blossoms, and then also a bunch of black paint as well. We're gonna water this down. If you have what's called India ink, you can use that as well. We're gonna water it down so that it makes it a little bit more fluid on the page. Then of course we're gonna use water. So I have an old, I don't even know what kind of container this is, to hold my water in. But if you have just a glass or a plastic cup, that will work as well. All right, guys, and then I also have some thicker paper, just like we talked about last week though. As long as you have something thicker than some printer paper, whether that's drawing paper or even a piece of cardboard, that will work as well. This is a sheet of watercolor paper, but don't feel like you need to get fancy and use watercolor paper if you don't have it. All right, so who knows where Japan is? Japan is in Asia, right? It's kind of, which is this area over here by China, and it's an island. I'm gonna go ahead and color in the little island. Well, it's not a little island, it's a good sized island, group of islands actually, here in Asia. Do you guys know where we are in Michigan? Here we are, North America. And here's our little mitten. I'm going to go ahead and color that in as well so that we can see where we are at. Now, if you were going to fly from Detroit all the way to Japan, does anybody have any idea how long that would be? How long it would take to fly all the way from Detroit all the way to Japan? Now, we were in Australia last week, and that took a really long time. We don't have to go this far south, so it's probably a little shorter. So what you would do is you would fly from Detroit, maybe you'd stop in Los Angeles or San Francisco, and then you would fly across the Pacific Ocean, come into see, remember the world is round. So we'd come across from the United States, crossing the Pacific Ocean, and we would continue across the Pacific Ocean all the way to Japan. That would take you 13 hours and 30 minutes. Super long time, but super cool if you have the opportunity to fly to Japan someday. All right, So cherry blossoms in Japan are actually really important within their culture. They have been since ancient times. There's going to be pictures of different cherry blossom paintings and artwork coming up on the screen right now. This time of the year is called Sakura, and the cherry blossoms are a symbol of life and friendship, ephemeral beauty within that culture. People gather together to view them. So there's a whole bunch of festivals. If you've ever been to Washington, D.C., here in the United States, they have a cherry blossom festival as well. In Japan, they call those viewing parties hanami, when people gather together to view the flowers together. From as early as the 8th century, cherry blossoms connected the sacred value of life in Japan. They're found in ancient and modern Japanese art, and they present in Japanese culture in everything from kimonos to the backs of their money. The 100 yen piece has some cherry blossoms on it, and you can see it in anime and contemporary music and film, all the way through. Cherry blossoms are really important within that culture. All right, so let's get started with our art making today. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take a pretty good amount of black paint and we're gonna just add some water to it. So maybe get some help from an adult so that we can thin this down. Now, like I said, I'm gonna use one of my Q-tips to mix it. If you have India ink, that's great. You can use that. If you don't, you can use this technique as well, adding that water to our acrylic paint or our tempera paint to just make it a little bit thinner. And you'll see why we want it to be a little bit thinner, but not super thin. So let's see, we're getting that consistency. Yeah, that should work great. All right, tapping that off a little bit. Then I'm going to set this aside. So I'm going to take my paintbrush, and if you remember from the paintings, those in the Japanese art, they really celebrate the like nooks and crannies of nature, really incorporating some of their spiritual beliefs in the things that are in nature as well. So we want to create these cherry blossom branches so that they represent all of the different the differences that are found in nature. So again, see, I've got my paintbrush really loaded up with paint, and I'm gonna come down. I'm gonna start at the very bottom. We're gonna make a painting that fills up this whole thing. So see it dripped off, that's totally okay. And I'm gonna come up and add a little bit more paint up here. The first section of my branch, and now I'm going to take my straw and I'm going to blow the paint around on my painting. And you gotta get kind of close. You can see the paint spreading out. On there. All right, I need to I'm a little lightheaded from all of that. I'm gonna make another branch that comes out here, comes over. I'm gonna add some more paint to that. So really making it nice and thick, and then same thing. You can see these little pieces coming off to the side to make branches, like little stems coming off of my big tree branch. I'm gonna make it a little bit thinner here, coming up, and again, really adding as much paint on there as I can. It's okay if you touch the paper with your straw. Looking pretty cool. All right, come up here, same thing, have it come off the page. Kind of work quickly. If you come up above it, you get more of the strips of paint coming off. Now it's time. I'm gonna set my brush aside to mix up some blossom paint. So I need to make pink, right? Because cherry blossoms are pink. They're pink in like a white and sometimes have some kind of, I don't know, pinkish peachish color to them too. So to make pink, what colors do you need to make pink, guys? We need some awesome white color. And then we also need, what color was it? Red. That's right. So I'm gonna mix in some white and some red, and I'm gonna make some different tones. When you mix white into any color, it makes a tone of using our paint. So since I got my white mixed into my red already, I'm gonna try to scoop up as much of that as possible. I'm gonna come over here. I'm gonna grab a new Q-tip. A lot more white here. Because I want a paler, softer pink. And then I'm gonna come back to my pink Q-tip and blend that in. So see, the more white you add, the lighter colored pink you get. Very good. And then I'm gonna make a really dark pink. So again, I'm gonna mix it right over here next to the red so I can get a lot of red in there. Like a clump of paint here. I'm gonna slide that little do job off to the side there. Give ourselves some nice dark pink. Ooh, that's pretty. I like that. All right, so I'm gonna set my Q-tips over here. I'm gonna have to wash my table right away, and I'm gonna grab this light colored pink right away. Then I'm gonna come right over to my painting, and I'm gonna use the side to make my blossom. So paint flowers have different petals, right? So we're gonna make individual blossom, little individual petals on each of, and I'm gonna come around and make a bunch of these on my painting. I'm gonna start with my light color. I'm gonna come up here, maybe make a smaller blossom. Just starting with my light pink, and then as these are drying, my first ones, we'll be able to on this side. See that I have this little drop over here, and it's not really connected to anything, so I'm gonna just make a little branch that comes back. So that's connected. Let that dry before I add come up here and do a little cherry blossom here. And if you do pick up a little bit of that black, that's okay. It's just adding a little shadow into your blossom. All right, I'm gonna add a couple more here. You can do as many cherry blossoms as you want. So what you'll see, let's see, I got a little bit of gray in that one, that's okay. I'm gonna actually change my Q-tip. When your Q-tip starts to wear out, feel free to grab another. You can also use a paintbrush if you want to try using a paintbrush instead. Next thing I'm gonna do is come back in and get some of that darker pink paint. And I'm just gonna use, remember how we made those dots last week? I'm gonna add just some dots here in the center. I'm just gonna mix in a little bit with my light pink, and that's okay, of my flowers. So not just pink. They've got lots of different tones in there. Using the side of my brush. Nice. I'm not going to do it on all of my blossoms because remember, blossoms are all different. If you want to blend it in, you can using your Q-tips. So here, watch. Things aren't quite dry yet. It's kind of the beauty of acrylic paint. Sometimes it takes a little longer to dry. And then it also means that once it's dry, you can paint right over it too. Ooh, that does look good. I'm liking that. Right, so some of these I have a little bit, I'm like, it's a little too dark a pink, I think. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna come in with my white. I'm going to blend that in a little bit. I just don't like how dark that got. I'm just going to add a little bit of white if I feel like I want to on some of these petals. Again, maybe it's just a little tap tap of my paintbrush or my Q-tip. Just adding a little bit of texture and light, because all those flowers have different amounts of light on them. All right, the next thing we're gonna do is I'm gonna add some more of our flower. Thing we're going to do is come in with a little bit of yellow, actually. I mentioned that earlier, but if you've got some yellow paint, we're going to make some light yellow, just because these blossoms what is pollinating all of these cherry trees, guys? Anybody have any ideas? Got a little bit of pink in there, that's even better. It's really more the natural color that it is. So I'm gonna take one of my Q-tips that doesn't have any, see how this has got like stringies coming off of it? Now we're gonna use the very tip, grab some of that yellow, and I'm just gonna come into the center and just go dot, 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 for the pollen, dot, 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 pollen, just like we did for the other ones, very, very light. Just like with the Australian dot painting we did last week. So a couple little dots, maybe even not even three, maybe just one. Whatever you think looks good in your painting. So my brush is getting kind of wonky, so, or not my brush, my Q-tip is getting a little wonky, so I'm going to go get a new one. Dot. Almost there. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed making this project with me today. The other thing that I didn't mention is that before you get started with your branches, the other option is to paint the background as well. I chose to leave mine white just because of time. We've already been on for 30 minutes, but if you want to go ahead and do some watercolor, like a solid blue behind it, or you want to paint mountains or anything that you would like to paint behind it, feel free to do that. I look forward to doing another project with you guys soon.